would you characterize your bass playing style?
Bass, you do a lot of 2/4, playing 2/4.
What's that?
2 beats to a measure. Most of that's your New Orleans beat. And then you could play it with a slap, or you can play it just strictly pizzicato.
Could you show us that? The 2/4 and what's a slap?
Oh
and
yes,
what's a
I can give you a little idea. Say like you, okay, say like Ray.
Okay, that's a 2/4 beat, and were you playing that with the slap there?
With a light slap.
Okay, well, give me a heavy slap.
Here's another slap.
Okay, now do the same thing with the pizzicato then.
With the pizzicato?
Yeah.
Percy's older siblings, Martin Manuel, Clarence, Cecilia, Alberta, and her husband August, cousins Joseph and Albert Dude Gabriel, were all active in and around New Orleans. Martin Joseph worked with the likes of Kid Rene and Papa Celestin, in addition to leading his own bands. Clarence mostly worked as a solo pianist at local nickel and dime dance halls. Alberta and Cecilia played piano at various school and church functions.
So tell us how you learned how to play the bass.
The bass, as I said, my brother-in-law August, my oldest sister's husband.
August Lanois.
Lanois. He also played the violin and trombone. He played with 2 bands. He played with Herbert Leary's band regular, and then he played with my brother, had a trio. My brother Clarence worked on Fridays and Saturday nights down in the French Quarters. It was a place then they were playing at Victor's Cafe on Toulouse and Bourbon Street, right in the heart of the French Quarters, just off the corner from where the Preservation Hall is. So when the big band had a job, he went with them. Then he used to always put somebody else with my brother, Albert Glennie, who also played with my daddy. Tom Copeland was another who played bass with my daddy. So my brother-in-law was always sending one of them. Well, he also worked in the cleaning business. When he was going to be a little late, he used to tell me, okay, take my bass on up there and just play around with it while the band is playing so nobody would notice. Well, I knew the strings on it. I didn't know too much of what I was doing, but somebody said it sounded good. And told me I should go into it all together. So one evening, I went over by my sister's house, and he left a note for me to go up on Upper Line Street off of Patania. A friend of his, Joe Charles. And he said, just go up there and tell him I said give it to you. Well, I didn't know what he was talking about. I caught the streetcar. We didn't have an automobile. I caught the streetcar and went on up there. So this friend of his, Joe Charles was his name, he said, oh yeah, you come for the bass. I was a little shy. I couldn't say no. What do August need with 2 basses? He's got a good bass. So, okay, I took the bass, had a little strap on it from coming from the peg up to the neck, threw it across my shoulder, caught the streetcar and come on down. So when August came from work that evening, he said, okay, now the bass is yours. Here's a finger chart. You'd already know the strings, but here's a chart with the fingering on it. You go over there by Clarence and tell him I say teach you this bass. You're going to be playing with him. So I went on over there, but carried the bass, had to walk with it a lot. Carried the bass on over to Clarence's house. He said, what? I said, yeah, Gus told me to come on over here for you to teach me how to play the bass. He said, come on in then. Sit down by the piano. He said, you know the strings on it? I said, yes, well, I knew that from the guitar. Your last 4 strings is the same as the bass. So I already start with a number like Dinah that didn't have many changes. He said, now this is an A flat. All right, you start off A flat, E flat, A flat, E flat, E flat, B flat, E flat, B flat, B flat, F, B flat, F, back to B flat, down to A. I said, oh yeah, well then I had a pretty good ear from playing the guitar, and I knew how to play those on the guitar and just transform right from the guitar to the bass. Well, the second week, August had to play with Herbie Leary's band. So, okay, you go work with Gun this week. We used to call my brother Gun. He was a little stocky built fella. We used to always say he hit like a gun shoot. So he said, you go down there and you play with Gun. So that was right down my alley then. Job, music was pretty good then, but nobody was making a lot of money. I think we was getting $1.25 a night, 3 drinks and a sandwich, and we made tips. So it was my brother Clarence. He doubled on banjo and piano. There was a little small piano there. Piano must have been about 4 octaves. And it wasn't electrical piano, it was an acoustic piano, but it was just small. Albert Burbanks, he was one of the late, great clarinet players. So said Burbanks said, well, okay, that's your little brother, come on, we get him in here. The first 2 weeks, my brother said I sound so bad he was afraid to tell the man who was waiting for that I was his brother. Because my fingers swelled up like big biscuits and I had them wrapped with tape. And it was a punishment at first 2 or 3 weeks. So after that, I'd go every day to my brother's house and he'd teach me the music. At the same time, my brother Manny was teaching me the music. My brother-in-law August was teaching music. Everybody had a little hand in on it.
One day when we kids were all home playing, I was about 12 years old, I took out my father's horn and I started to playing with it. And all of a sudden, when I looked up, my father was in the house looking at me. I just knew he was going to give me a good spanking, you know, tear me up. Instead, he came in the house and started teaching me to play. And then when I was about 13 years old, he started to take me around to play jobs. And I played jazz when I was 13, 14, 15, and 16. When I was 16, I got married. And my husband told my father after I was married he didn't want no career woman, he wanted a wife. And that's when I stopped playing. But I played for a lot of bazaars and weddings and at the church. That's the kind of things that he didn't take me to around no bars or nothing. But he just let me play for a lot of weddings. A lot of times the people would say, Mr. Gabriel, be sure and bring the girl with you. Because he used to give me quite a bit of money, but I never seen it. He brought it home to my mother.
Indeed, there were some less successful attempts.
My father's very strict with us. We couldn't put other kids go down the block or anything. We all had to play music. He bought me a banjo. I tried to learn it. Then he bought me another. The kids broke it. He bought me another one, and I had to get to play it. He tried to make me sing Sweet Sue. I could never carry a tune. I said, Sweet Sue. He hit me on my head. Hit me again and said, Sweet Sue. So I never could carry a tune. But he tried to teach me, and tried very hard.
And it wasn't always all fun.
When I was a kid, when my father taught me, the first song he taught me was In My Solitude. And after learning In My Solitude, I was about, I'd say about 11 or 12 years old. I learned this song In My Solitude. He said, well, now you're ready to go and play music now. So he took me out on a job. I said, what am I going to do after I play In My Solitude, Daddy? He said, well, I'll show you what to do. So we went on a job, and I was about 12, 11 years old, something like that. Went on a job, and I played in my solitude. And after that, he began to give me some little notes to harmonize on, you know, like boo, dude, card, and so forth and so on. And so I did this. And then after I started learning a few more songs, then he began to send us down into the French quarters to play. And so it seemed like more like it was work, because I wanted to go out and be with the little girls and be with the little boys, you know. And I didn't want to go out and take up my Sunday or my weekends to play music. And so finally I had to cry about it, you know. And so he said, well, he says, what I'll do, I'll alternate you and Martin. That's my brother Martin. He's older than I am. And he played trumpet too. So he used to let Martin and I, we used to alternate. So Martin would play one night and I would play one night.
And work they did. Whether as a leader or a sideman, there was a Gabriel out there. They played New Orleans jazz, and they played it in New Orleans. That is, until Harold Dijon hired Percy to join the band on a pleasure liner traveling to New York.
Back in 1937, when I first went to New York with Harold Dijon's band, we were playing on a steamer Dixie. That's an ocean steamer, pleasure boat from New Orleans to New York, didn't make any other stops. And they had suites on the boat. The boat was so big until during World War II, the government took it as a transport to carry soldiers all over the world. That's just how big it was. Well, we'd be in dock in New York for 6 days. And naturally, I had relatives up there, so I wouldn't stay on the boat. I stayed with the relatives, and I'd hit up in Harlem. I went into a place called the Big Apple on 135th and 7th Avenue. It was owned by Ed Smalls, who had the Great Smalls Paradise. So I went in there and I asked him, let me sit in. So Bob Robinson had the group in there. He said, where you from? I said, I come in on a boat from New Orleans. He said, oh, give him the bass, let him sit in. So I played. After I said, played about the first 2 or 3 numbers, he asked me, did I want a job? I says, no, I can't take a job. I said, I'm working on a boat. He said, well, you make up your mind to quit the boat, you got a job here in New York. Just say you want to stay in New York, and you got a job. I made about 4 or 5 more trips. And then I decided to stay in New York. I just went there and said, I'm going to stay this trip. He said, you want to start tonight? Just like that. I said, no, give me a couple days. So he fired his bass player and took me. So it was Bob Robinson on piano, Sammy Allen on guitar, I was on bass, and Hazel Ballard was singing with us. That's how I got to know a lot of the great musicians around New York, because we'd start playing around 10 o'clock. We'd play from about 10 at night until 4 in the morning, 4:30. And every musician who was somebody, they used to come in there and sit in. Fellas like Harry James, Roy Eldridge. I got to meet the great Stuff Smith, 80 South, great violinist, great jazz violinist, Trauma Young. Any good musician who was anybody used to come in there to sit in, because we had a terrific rhythm section. And you may know, or you probably heard, when Bob Robinson left the Big Apple, he went with this fellow who's Billy Daniels. He was his pianist. And he tried to get me to come with him, but I said, no, I got a little better deal going down to Palm Beach, Florida with another group. At the same time, Danny Barker was trying to get me to come with Cab Calloway, because Morgan had left Cab Calloway and went with somewhere else. I think he went out to California or something, and he needed a bass player, because Cab had got him another band getting ready to go on the road. I said, nope. I already told him that I'm going down there on a regular job. We had 6 months in Florida, and I didn't want no one-nighters then. That's all the bands were doing, one-nighters. And staying in one place for 6 months, you could accumulate more than staying in a different motel every night.
He traveled to Florida with Jack Sneed, Joe Guy, and George Mordat. They did well working the resort scene and had more than a few adventures.
So we walking slow along Main Street, looking in the show windows, window shopping. Here it is, 3:30 in the morning, we window shopping. Well, then we wore white Palm Beach suits, white shoes, white shirt, and a red bow tie with a red boot in there. We was really clean. Here comes a policeman riding on a bicycle. We call him a dough shaker. They said, "Where you boys going?" I said, "We're going home." "Where you coming from?" "We're coming from work." "You got your pass?" "What pass?" "I don't know nothing about a pass." He said, "Well, I'll tell you, keep right straight on this street until you get to Rosemary. And when you turn Rosemary, just before you get to the railroad track, you'll see the police station. You go in there and I'll meet you there." I said, okay. We went on, walked in the police station, and he walked in just right alongside of us, sitting behind well, we called him the desk sergeant, behind the counter. He was talking about a redneck. You hear rednecks, but you haven't seen a redneck until you've seen him. He weighed about 250, 260 pounds, and he was red as a beet. And he leaned over this counter and it says, "What you niggas did?" And the policeman said, "They ain't did nothing. They was walking home from work." "Didn't you see that pass?" "No, they didn't have no pass." So he called all 4 of us up in front, well, they call it the desk, but it's nothing but a counter to me. He said, "Where you boys from?" I said, "We're from New York." He said, "I know you're all a book from New York. We know more about you than you know yourself when you come in here." I said, "Well, you know we got rules. This ain't New York. We got rules here. No niggers allowed in the white section after dark. No white allowed in the nigger section after dark. Now you see that railroad track there? That's the dividing line. Now if you got to walk from work, you be sure and get a pass from your boss." So, okay. We waited about a week or 2 later. We're going to try that, see what it's all about. So we went to the boss. "Mr. Wife, give us a pass. We're walking home tonight." Yeah, okay, he got one of them little pieces of slip off one of the girls where she write up the orders. "These are my noisemakers. Let them through." He didn't have nobody's name on, not even his own name on it. Police picked up, county police picked us up again. "Okay, I'll ride you over the bridge. You got your pass?" "Yep." Walking, the same dough shaker came along there, as we called him, on a bicycle. "Where you boys going?" "We're going home." "Where you coming from?" "We're coming from work." "You got a pass?" "Yeah." Now he's out in the street on the bike, and we on the sidewalk. We hold up that little slip of paper, which was about a 3-5. "Yep, go ahead through." He didn't even look at it. Didn't even look at it to see if anything was wrong. We could have had a piece of toilet paper and did the same identical thing, and he wouldn't have known the difference.
While the road took him through Florida and on to Georgia, back home,